Welcome to Pod Save America Live. Taking your questions as always.
What's up? I'm retweeting the stream now. Technically, I've deleted Twitter from my phone. However, it turns out that there is an integrated Slack Twitter that I can also use. So I've sort of got a workaround.
Pertinent information from Jon Lovett. Also with us, as always, is Priyanka Aribindi.
Hey, everybody.
Asking us all of your questions,
All of the
including some of her
questions.
own.
Yeah. I was going to start with a little more on Lovett's new Twitter policy, but maybe we'll kick off with the Mueller report, get into some of that stuff, and then circle back to this. How do we feel about that?
Love
Circle
circling.
back to that Slack Twitter integration.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I want to know more.
All right, let's hear it.
Cool. Okay. First
me.
off, we're coming in hot. Where should our expectations be for tomorrow with the release of the, quote, Mueller report?
Guilty.
Done. There you have it.
Look, I think the best thing to do is to skim it, quickly read everyone's Twitter reactions, RT the ones you like, ignore the ones you don't. And that's about it. What do you think, John?
I think that'll work. Look, let's see what it feels like. I come back to how it feels, when
He's a real tactile politician.
emotionally tactile. I don't, not grabbing shoulders. I would say we will see the Mueller report. We know how Fox News is going to respond. We know how Donald Trump is going to respond. I think we won't know until we see it how mainstream journalists respond. And then I'm eager to see just how surprised we are. I guess that's what it boils down to. How surprised are we at the end
what's
of the day?
new in there?
Yeah.
I think first, everyone's going to look at the obstruction section first, since that is the part that seems most unclear, right? We know that there was evidence on both sides, evidence that Trump, the president, did obstruct justice and commit a crime, and evidence that maybe he did not, and Mueller declined to say whether the president should be indicted or not. And obviously Barr decided that he should not. So looking to see that evidence, we know that there's going to be some new evidence of obstruction in there that hasn't been reported already. And then look at the section of the report that's about the links between the Trump campaign and Russia. We know that there was no, or at least Mueller and Barr decided there were no additional crimes to prosecute in terms of connections between Trump and Russia, but clearly there were links and connections. There were a lot of cases that Mueller took on, including the Russian trolls, the hacking, all kinds of stuff that was not initially under Mueller's purview, the Flynn case, all this kind of stuff, and he took it on probably because there were links between the Trump campaign and Russia, which was his charge at the beginning, and it will be interesting to see why he declined to prosecute some of these people and some of the people in the Trump campaign, or including Don Jr., people like that, and what evidence there was or wasn't. Of course, the other thing we have to look out for is Barr did say he will redact 4 categories of information in the report. Basically, he'll redact anything that's classified. He'll redact anything that hurts the reputation of third parties, though he has said he will not redact anything that hurts the reputation of Donald Trump himself. And he will redact anything that grand jury information and anything that will interfere with ongoing investigations. So those are 4 categories, and we don't know how.
Yeah, we don't know how much he's going to redact. And I also think we don't really know what this report is going to look like. Some of the stories have said that there were summaries that Robert Mueller wrote for the purpose of being released, so that each of these sections of the report have this public-facing synopsis. And Robert Mueller is a very smart person who knows what the public should and should not see, it seems. And if Barr goes in and starts redacting the parts that Robert Mueller wrote to be public, I think that will be an important part of the controversy.
And one last thing to keep in mind, Robert Mueller's job was not to write a report that revealed everything he found out about Russia and its role in the 2016 election. This report is about why he decided to prosecute and then decline to prosecute a whole bunch of different individuals. So just understanding the scope There could be a lot of information that he discovered through the course of his investigation that's not in the report, because the very narrow charge was write a report that tells you why you decided to prosecute some people, why you decided to not prosecute other people.
Regardless of what happens and is in the actual report, what's redacted, what's not, do we think the push from Democrats to get the full unredacted report was still going to be ongoing after this?
I believe it will. And I also think, the other thing we have to keep in mind is that the public might not see everything in the report, but Barr may decide to brief the heads of various House committees, which include Democrats and Republicans, on some of the more classified information. So we'll see after the report's released if Adam Schiff, for example, is happy with the information that is both in the report and that he may be receiving privately from the Attorney General. But I do think either way, the Democrats will probably push to make sure that at least our representatives in Congress have seen the full report, footnotes, redactions, and all.
Got it. And I know you guys are pro RTs. How do you feel about faves if you see Mueller report tweets that you like? Are you like, no? Is it an RT or nothing?
I'll be faving my ass off.
Look, we don't know how many faves it'll take to get rid of Donald Trump.
The Krasensteins do.
They're working on it.
It's probably more faves than we think, and it'll be hard to get to that number, but we'll only get to the number of faves we need to remove Donald Trump if we're all faving together. I mean, that's one of the lessons of the last 2 years.
Got it. All right. This next question is about another thing related to William Barr. Barr's decision to deny bond hearings to asylum seekers. Can we talk about why that's incredibly cruel? Is it unconstitutional? What is our takeaway from this news?
I don't know if it's unconstitutional, but I think the ACLU is going to sue. Just so everyone knows, basically, what happens now is if you come to this country, if you do not have papers, but you have a credible claim of asylum, you go through an interview with the Border Patrol. If they think that your asylum claim might be credible, then you get a hearing scheduled with the judge. In between that time, the question is what happens to the asylum seeker in between. If you show up yourself without papers and you turn yourself in, you are detained. The question is how long are you detained and when the hearing is. Basically what Barr said is there's only two ways to not be detained. The ICE can decide that you're released and then come back for the trial, or you can have a hearing with an immigration judge, and say, a bond hearing, basically, like, can I go out on bail? And basically, when Sessions was Attorney General, he started this process, which now Barr has made a ruling on, by looking at a decision in 2005 that said asylum seekers can request a bail hearing, a bond hearing, and Barr is saying, no, they can't anymore. Now, what's crazy about this is all they're doing, basically the Trump administration is trying to say we want to detain more people, right, for longer. By detaining more people for longer, you're only increasing sort of the backlog of asylum cases that we have. So it's not fixing the problem. It's not preventing more people from seeking asylum. It's not getting the cases heard any faster. It's not deporting people any faster. It's merely just keeping people detained for longer. We should also say this only affects single individuals who come and do this, because families aren't allowed to be detained because of the Flores settlement. So this is only if you are a single person who arrives at the border and tries to claim asylum.
And it's worth just remembering that, this is William Barr now carrying water for Donald Trump again. We've just went through a whole conversation around Kirstjen Nielsen and her involvement in the zero tolerance policy and the separating of parents from children. That is also a policy that emanated from the Justice Department under Sessions. Barr is continuing that effort to, ratify Donald Trump's immigration agenda and once again finding ways to exact cruelty on asylum seekers because of Donald Trump's position that they're all a bunch of whining fakers.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, we'll move to other big news this week. How do you guys feel about the administration offering to help in the rehabilitation of the Notre Dame Cathedral while places like Flint, Michigan, Puerto Rico, American citizens are not being helped? I know there were some takes earlier this week.
I will say Lovett and I have talked about this, so we have some takes. So I looked this up because I was like, what exactly did the administration promise? Trump said, we would offer help, like our experts in rebuilding would offer advice, right? And then Sarah Huckabee Sanders said, we will offer assistance, didn't specify. And then there were reports that Trump himself might make a personal donation to help rehabilitate.
I hope that painting of him will help.
So it didn't seem like the administration said we're going to send like U.S. tax dollars and foreign aid over there yet. Like I didn't see I didn't see anything like that. But yeah, so but
I'll tell you what my official position would be. This is it is, of course, Donald Trump would start tweeting about Notre Dame. It was on television.
Right.
Of course, he would start tweeting firefighting ideas based on nothing because it was on television, forcing the Parisian firefighters to have to give out a public statement in English rebuking the president in the middle of the fighting of the fire.
Because he is a low information cable news viewer who became the president.
Just fucking every old man just
That's who he is.
bullshitting
on it.
Every fucking old man just bullshitting about how to solve every problem in the earth at the like country club locker room because they're the smartest people on earth because no one's told them no in 40 years. I am a bit frustrated by it's very sad what's happened to the Notre Dame Cathedral, obviously. It is a tragedy. It is sad when something so beautiful and so old and so important to a culture is, lost or damaged in that way. I will say people tweeting selfies of themselves in front of the cathedral. I didn't do much to stop the fire. And it is amazing what people care about and what they don't. It is not a surprise that Donald Trump and many like him would be moved by the destruction of a cathedral, while at the same time trying to stop aid from going to places like Puerto Rico.
Flint, Michigan.
There's
just people hungry in this country. I mean, it's just like all these companies too, not just Donald Trump, like all these companies that immediately say they're going to send like hundreds of millions of dollars over there. Like, good for them, but I don't know. I would love some of that $100 million for those companies to be spent on the fucking poor and hungry people in this country.
Yeah, like what does it take for a person to get help? Do they need to be made out of 13th century masonry? Like what is the like?
We got people who like are using GoFundMe to sort of raise money so they can get their surgeries and buy insulin. It's just and this is all fucking media driven because when something like this happens, it's all over Twitter. Everyone's seeing the fire and everything, and so like it's a groundswell of support, and like that's great. But why can't we do that when people are in Puerto Rico and Flint and begging for help?
Look beneath your feet. You're walking on the crunchy, broken ground of a ton of cathedrals you didn't give a shit about.
Great bottom line.
Drives me nuts.
Right?
Drives me nuts. It's just
the
things that we focus on and care about.
It's yeah. It tells you a lot about what we care about.
For sure. All right. This next one is getting into Dem policy going into 2020. So we're shifting gears again, but not too far. Christine wants to know about the international agreements that Trump terminated, like the Paris Climate Agreement, Iran nuclear deal, the one with Russia and the missiles. Did the 2020 candidates comment or commit to re-enter them? Is that even possible or useful? Like, what should we be looking for? Policy-wise in this election.
The easiest one of all of these is Paris, and I've heard a number of candidates say that on day. I mean, it's like the easiest thing you can say as a candidate. Cory Booker said it to me here. I heard Beto say it. I've heard Warren say it. That like on day one, you can re-enter the Paris Agreement, and the good news is, we don't leave the Paris Agreement until November of 2020, even though Trump pulled us out of it. We're still in it right now because it doesn't actually happen until November 2020. So if a Democrat wins the election in 2020, we're in.
We're back.
We're not even. It's not even like we were out of it. It's like it never happened.
Yeah, it's like it never happened except for the permanent ruination of the American word on the international stage. But other than that. No consequences on Paris.
And in terms of climate, the more significant action that Trump took was repealing the Clean Power Plan Act, which Obama put into effect. And I think the candidates can make sure that we have that in place again as well. We can also, if Iran is still complying with the Iran deal, we can certainly re-enter that agreement as well. And so, look, I think we've sort of gotten around to this with some of these candidates. We talk a lot about the filibuster. We talk a lot about their legislative agenda. But, say there's a divided Congress. Say we don't get the Senate back. A lot of these candidates need to think about what actions they can take on their own through executive order, not just undoing some of the damage Trump has done by executive order, but what power do they have to sort of put in place some progressive policies on their own.
Yeah, Donald Trump's biggest legislative achievement and his only significant legislative achievement is the tax bill, right? That is something that will take legislative effort to revoke. He's also had an incredible amount of success putting judges on the bench. That has required Congress. A lot of the other steps he's taken have been vindictive and cruel and meant to undo the legacy of Barack Obama because he has a personal vendetta and no ideology. But the the good news of that is there's nothing Donald Trump that has done by executive order that won't devolve to a new president who can use that power to reverse it or reverse as much as they can, as quickly as they can when they take office.
Hopeful.
Yeah.
No, it is. I mean, look,
That's
you step back from it, and it actually I think it's part of 2022. 2020 as well. Like, we are all paying attention so much, and it means we see all the frenetic chaos and noise of Donald Trump, and it matters and it's important because he's just damaging our culture and he's hurting people and he's attacking people and he's making America a more cruel and wanton place. But at the end of the day, what a president does is make policy and implement those policies. And then you can step back and see that what we can hopefully make him is an ultimately ineffectual and memorable, but not long-lasting president in terms of policymaking if we win this election. And that's a big if. And I think a lot of reason this 2020 election will be so important is that the effects of Donald Trump winning re-election will not double the effect of his first term. It will be far more cataclysmic because everything he has done in his first term will be something that lasts, and everything he does in the years that follow will have a better chance of lasting as well. So it is 2020 is...
Thought we'd end on that hopeful note, Priyanka, but then he just...
I just was thinking about it. I was thinking about it. Well, you know what? Maybe a hopeful note is not what we fucking need. Maybe hopeful notes.
Sure.
That's how we got into this goddamn mess.
Oh.
Priyanka?
I feel attacked.
I love a hopeful note. It's a beautiful day out.
Next question.
Lovely. I'm going to interject with one of my own because I
Sure.
got a bunch of questions from people who reached out and submitted and are kind of wondering when candidates are going to talk about X or what has been said about this issue. I think broadly in general, can we talk about the phase of the primary that we're in, what we should be expecting from candidates? Because I know that there are some, like Elizabeth Warren, who has a new policy proposal every week. There are some who are just announcing. Is there, what should we be looking for? What should we, be holding? What standards should we hold our candidates to at this point?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because, just from my point of view, and you were on Hillary's campaign at the time, in 2007, I would say from February when they announced through the early summer, that's when most of the big policy announcements and speeches were. So it's not like either of them had all of their policies announced by now, or even close.
Mm-hmm.
We were writing policy speeches all through the spring and summer of 2007.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing is they don't have all of their policies out, and at least aside from Elizabeth Warren. They don't have all of their policies out. They haven't all done their big policy speeches or rollouts, and yet they're all campaigning at this frenetic pace. So they're getting asked by reporters and voters, what's your stance on this? What's your stance on that? So they're answering,
Right.
But they don't necessarily have policies of their own just yet. Some of them do. The senators tend to. I talked to Kamala Harris this week, and her big policy, her top priority as president is the LIFT Act. That's actually something that she introduced while she was a senator. Her first new campaign proposal is this proposal that we talked about on the pod to pay teachers more, right? And so that's her one proposal so far. She's probably going to have a ton more, right? There's candidates getting into the race right now that will probably, Joe Biden's still not in the race. He's probably going to have a bunch of policy proposals. So
Look, let's say this is an episode of Chopped. They just opened their baskets in the appetizer round, right? And it's the easiest round, right? They've opened that basket and there's chocolate nibs. That's the hard ingredient for incorporating into their appetizer. That's where we're at, right? We have not reached an entree in which they have to use vanilla ice cream. We have not reached dessert where they need to use pickles, The first basket has just opened.
Is that the end of the thought?
I hope so.
Ooh. President Trump says Attorney General Barr will be giving a press conference tomorrow when the Mueller report is released.
Oh.
And says that Trump also might do a press conference. So they're trying to they want to try to spin this thing.
Oh, it must be very bad. Or maybe it's great. Time will tell.
All right. Next topic. Can you guys talk about Bernie's Fox town hall? Got the highest ratings of any town hall so far. Was it actually a good idea long term? Should more Democrats go on Fox? I know some are thinking about it. What are your guys' thoughts?
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. I actually think Dan Pfeiffer summarized my thoughts on it pretty well in a tweet, which I didn't see because I don't have Twitter. It was that he said that he understands the short-term benefits of going on Fox for candidates, but he doesn't believe it's correct to contribute to the long-term harm of lending legitimacy to Fox News, which is one of the most destructive forces in American public life. And I think that captures the problem really well. I understand the value of a candidate going on. However, the point that Dan made, which I think is a really good one, is when you go on and do a forum like that, even with their legitimate journalists, even if there's value, even if it's a good forum, you are helping to lend legitimacy to a network will then turn around and be able to sell more advertisements for Laura Ingraham and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, who are vicious, hateful, mean-spirited disseminators of misinformation and who have contributed to the toxic political environment that has really damaged this country. And I think it's a tough situation. I understand the value of it, but I don't know how you get past that fundamental moral problem.
I agree with all of that. I think I come down on if I was campaign manager or communications director for any of these candidates, I would say go do the Fox News town hall. Don't do the other interviews. Maybe do. I saw Pete Buttigieg a month ago do a Chris Wallace interview. Yeah, maybe. That's fine. But the town hall to me is different because, as we saw with Bernie, you get an audience that, I mean, for all these Fox News viewers, right? Again, most of them are hardcore Trump fan Republicans. We're never getting them. They're lost, right? But there's a good chunk of people who watch Fox. They may be independents. They may be Democrats sometimes. And for them to watch their favorite propaganda channel, which always just spews bullshit, and suddenly there's Bernie Sanders, and he's talking about Medicare for All, and this crowd of people is clapping. And not only that, but Bernie was able to call out Fox to the hosts during the town hall and attack Fox.
I imagine that whole spectacle was very confusing.
It's probably very confusing, but I do think if you're someone who probably a minority, but a small percentage of Fox viewers who are still up for grabs and might go either way. And look, it's the top-rated cable network in the country. I think it's from a campaign perspective, it could be a good way to get some voters. And and to me, like,
but isn't that giving into the that's the point, right? We see the advantage for the candidates to do it. There are a lot of things that campaigns can do that are good for them but bad for the country. In this case, isn't an example unfortunately true that it is good for them and bad for the country to contribute to Fox?
It is, but electing a Democratic president and having someone win that campaign is the most important thing for the country, more important than anything else. And so if appearing on a Fox News town hall and getting a few voters, which we need every last voter we can get, non-voters, base voters, moderate voters, swing voters, we need all of them. If we're going to win. To me, if you can get that and we have this emergency of Donald Trump as president, like I as a campaign manager, I will do literally everything I can to win this election.
So, but let's just think about what happens. So Bernie Sanders goes on Fox. He has a great night. I agree, it has value. Bernie's not going to be on Fox again for a very long time.
Right.
But they're going to turn around and go to their advertisers who've maybe been skittish, maybe been on the fence, and say, look, we're right-wing sometimes, but look, Bernie Sanders is coming here. We're part of the mainstream. People recognize that. If Democrats are okay with us, why aren't you okay with us?
I don't think that's why advertisers are making the decision. Also, these advertisers, let's be honest, like they cancel, they just shift them around. They're not on Tucker's show anymore, right? They're not a Laura Ingraham show, but Fox uses them with the rest of the programming.
I think that there's been a collective effort on the part of activists to try to drive a wedge in Fox by making it harder and harder for advertisers to justify being on that network, especially being on their primetime, which costs them the most because their hosts are the most expensive. And anything we do that hurts the work of those activists, I think is the wrong thing to do. I think you're right. I think every argument you're making is correct. And I think if I were advising a candidate, I would say, do it. It's good for you. But I think it is worth recognizing that they're doing something that does contribute to Fox News. And I think it's an open question as to whether the good of Bernie Sanders reaching that audience is undone by the bad of lending legitimacy to Fox. And I think that is an open question.
Yeah. Legitimacy is such a fuzzy term that I don't know the concrete consequences of what it means, of like can you quantify how much legitimacy
Well,
Bernie gave
as
to
hard-
Fox and what that does and what the consequences of that are and what that is? I just don't know.
I think it's as hard to look. I think it's as gauzy to try to figure out what it means to lend legitimacy as it is to try to exactly deduce how much benefit Bernie got from going on Fox News. I think these are all hard things to sort out.
Got it. On to the next one.
Look at us, little disagreement, little debate.
This is what
I
happens
know.
on
I
the
talked to
street.
Dan about this too. I think I just feel a little differently on this one, and I get all the other arguments, but I guess I'm just like solely focused on just whatever it takes to fucking win this thing and win the argument with people. And I realize that like it is, and I've been part of this. I've been part of the progressive movement to shame Fox and shame the advertiser and all that. I'm proud of that. And I want to keep doing it. The best, as we've said before, the best thing that any fucking liberal billionaire could do for this country is buy Fox News and shut the fucking thing down.
Right. But I guess
100%.
But I would say that there's, even on the terms of being singularly focused on winning 2020, I think it is even still there an open question as to whether it is good or bad to go on Fox. That's all.
Maybe.
Do you think, before we move from the topic, do you think that it makes a difference in the primary versus general election? Like that they're doing it now versus in the general?
That's a good question. I don't know. Like, I think I would have my candidate do it in the general too, probably, because it's a big audience and
It's probably more useful in the general.
It
Yeah,
might be
that's
even
what I
more
was
useful in the
thinking.
general.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe that there are more natural primary voters watching Fox News than there are more natural potential Democratic general election voters watching Fox News.
Yeah. Although I look, we were in Boston and I went out with my aunt and cousins after the show, and I have one aunt and at least one cousin that I think they're Republicans. They watch Fox News. They don't like Donald Trump, and they're telling me about, they're like, oh, I found this Pete Buttigieg guy interesting. I found Amy Klobuchar interesting, whatever, and I'm thinking about them, and they're trying to figure out, right, like they probably want to vote for a Democrat, but they want to know who the Democrat is, and if they're learning about that Democrat through Fox News because they're watching Fox News anyway, then it might be useful in a primary. But you're right. I think it's more useful in a general than a primary.
Got it. Okay. So this person wants to know what they should be doing at home right now about this 2020 race. Is canvassing for candidates up and down the ballot a good use of our time right now? Or is it too early? What should people at home who are interested be doing?
I would canvass now. I think we
Okay.
should be in a conversation with voters every day, all the time. We should not wait until the election, whether you're canvassing about a specific candidate, whether you're canvassing about a specific issue. Any time that you can be talking to people in your social networks, in your neighborhood, even strangers, about politics and getting a conversation going to the extent that they want to have a conversation about politics and don't shut the door in your face because it's not, a couple months before November. I think it's great to do. I think organizing is work that has to happen every single day, all the time. And part of the problem is we, sometimes only do it around an election, and that's too late.
And in particular, now is also a time to be registering voters.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this is, we Democrats especially tend to focus on registration as we're focusing on the election itself, but it's a slog. We saw that, when you talk to the groups that are even registering voters close to an election, that a victory, a good day is a day where you get a few people. It's hard. So that's important too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Next question. Can we talk about the possibility with all of these candidates? I think there are 19 or 20 who are officially declared, that we reach the convention without a nominee. What are the consequences of that if it would happen? Do you think the party can reunite after division between these candidates? What is your take on this?
So Jonathan Martin of the New York Times wrote a great story about this this week. And the story started off with a woman named, I'm going to forget her name, but I think it's Leah Doherty. And she helped run the last two Democratic conventions. And she so she knows all the rules, all the delegate rules and everything. And she very much believes that we will get to the convention without a nominee. And so here's how that might happen. So we have the first four nominating contests: Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada. Right after that is Super Tuesday, California, Texas, 8 other states. About 40% of the delegates will be allocated after Super Tuesday.
Oh man.
Yeah. So how do you get delegates, right? You get delegates. So
How do you get them?
how do you get them, right? The Republican system in the primary is this: whoever wins the state whichever Republican candidate wins the state, gets all the delegates in that state.
A Koch brother places on the crest of deciding and walks with the chosen candidate into the sepulcher, anoints him with the blood of Roger Ailes, and he will soon be president.
The Democratic Party works very differently. Democratic Party works so if you win the state, you get a certain number of delegates for winning, but then all of the other delegates are allocated proportionally. And some delegates are allocated by congressional district. So if you hit 15% in the poll, if you hit under 15%, if you get under 15% in the polls in that state, you don't win any delegates. Sorry, you're probably going to drop out. But if you're at 15% or over, you're eligible for delegates. Sometimes you could get statewide delegates. Sometimes if you win a congressional district, even if you lose the state, you get a couple delegates for that.
Would drumming help with this?
So anyway, because the delegates all get split up and we have a big field, you could see a scenario, which might even be a likely scenario, that you get to June and we go to Milwaukee and no one has a majority of pledged delegates. It's because the rule is it's not who has the most pledged delegates getting into the convention, it's who crosses the threshold of having a majority. And so if we have 3 or 4 candidates, at that point maybe 3, and none of them have a majority, then what do? So you go to the convention, we have the first ballot. And all the pledged delegates that were won by the primary contest have to vote the way that they were pledged to, by who won the contest. And no one has a majority of delegates. So then what happens? Well, one thing is the 2 candidates in the lead could decide to form a unity ticket, president and vice president, and say,
So
all
then
right,
we got, then it's just Biden Swalwell.
So you just do it there, and then we avoid catastrophe, and that's it. Or they can say, no, we hate each other. We're not doing that.
Swalwell's like, I'm done. I'm not listening to you anymore, Joe Biden.
And then you go to the second ballot, and on the second ballot, the superdelegates can then participate.
That's Spider-Man. Thor.
Superdelegates are past presidents, party leaders, governors,
Ant-Man.
electeds, party bigwigs. And they can all decide to vote, and then that tips them. So, but the question is like,
oh my God,
what if the superdelegates vote, and they vote for the person who didn't get the most pledged delegates?
Everybody's cool with it, and then we all come together because we're a big team.
Anyway, it could be chaos. If you want, listen to the episode of The Wilderness about the party, and it starts with the 68 convention in Chicago when things got a little rowdy.
How did the general go that year? How did it go?
Go well.
Didn't go well.
Didn't go well.
Look.
What do you think, Lovett?
Very bad.
Doesn't feel great.
Doesn't feel great. Look, I think that is a dangerous and frightening and quite possible outcome, and we should all be aware of that.
So really, this stream's on the up and up.
I honestly think that what I said in the middle there, which is the best way to avoid this if we get to that that potential outcome, is for everyone to encourage forcefully the first and second people
to form a unit. The first place becomes the presidential nominee. The second person becomes the vice presidential nominee, and that is the unified Democratic Party. In all seriousness, I think in all the noise and all the conversations and all the debates that may get heated, it is always worth remembering, stepping back and saying, what is this process? It's picking a candidate, right? That's what it is. But it is a group of people coming together to choose the person to represent them in the biggest fight that maybe we've ever had, like one of the biggest political fights in our lifetimes for sure. And that is stressful, and it is contentious, and it is anxiety-provoking, but ultimately we are all coming together to pick the person that best represents all of us. And if we can keep that in mind, if we ever even get to that situation...
This is the final Avengers movie.
This is it. This is it. And it's 3 hours long, and they don't validate parking.
All right, one more before we leave the topic. It's not necessarily a topic, but can you remind everyone how to contribute to the campaign that will benefit the eventual nominee? Parentheses, I forget the name of it.
Vote say.
What a planted question. Wow. Yeah, sure. We're all supporting our different candidates now, but we need that candidate to have all the resources they need to take on Donald Trump once they do become the nominee. I wish there was a place they could go to get that kind of information. What do you think, John?
Unify or die. VoteSaveAmerica.com/unify.
And what happens there, John?
Well, you can go give to a fund that will go to the Democratic nominee the second that she or he takes the nomination.
Guys, that was flawless.
Thank you.
Flawless.
The years of doing ads really paid off. Okay, we can get to the fun stuff now. First, there's some chatter going on Twitter.
Uh-oh.
Emily wants to know, this is a question for me, can she wear Allbirds to Coachella? I didn't know she was going to Coachella. Is she going to Coachella?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
Emily Favreau.
I'm sorry. Your wife asked you, Priyanka, to ask John and I a question.
No. She asked me to just address this on live stream.
Well, what's your answer?
No, you can never wear Allbirds. Sorry.
Priyanka
cool.
doesn't like
I respect that.
Allbirds.
I
Emily
just asked
likes
John
Allbirds.
and me. I said
But-
John and I regret it.
but
I just
no,
want you to
no.
know
I
the
won't be wearing.
grammarians.
I won't be wearing
you guys
Allbirds.
going?
Yes, we're. Yes,
Oh my
we're.
God, same.
Really?
See you there, yeah.
We just found this out now. Oh, this will be fun.
Great. I'm wearing the hat, Travis's hat,
What's Travis's hat?
cowboy hat.
Oh, that's great.
said I could borrow
All right,
it.
so we will find you then as the person.
Yeah,
who
and
makes-
then Jen, Travis's wife, is also in the comments. She said, "Do you guys let Travis participate in live streams or no?" Just to be clear, I think the answer should be no.
we usually do, but I don't know why he's not here today. He's here in the office. I think he's just
I'm ambivalent. I don't care one way or the other.
just tweeting.
All right, this one's for me.
Thanks, Emily
before
and Jen, for the questions.
Love her.
Any other relatives of Crooked Media employees want to ask?
I'm gonna have a ban on any live stream questions for people who can text me. If you can text me, text me. If you can't, the live stream is a great forum.
Oh, harsh. Okay, this one's for me. So, I mean, I guess I could text you, but.
Oh, I saw this one too.
I saw this
All right,
one,
Let's
too.
go. Let's
Oh,
go.
no. This one wasn't that one. That was just for my Instagram stories this morning, and I was like, be my own biggest fan, right? Whatever. I was wondering from the 2020 interviews that you guys did, what have been your most memorable moments so far? And, like, you don't have to speak to every single one that you've released, but just, like, the interviews that you're, like, have done yourselves.
Interesting.
Or have there been, like, things that surprised you or, like, people who
So
were...
we had Andrew Yang on Love It or Leave It. I asked when he came on stage, any members of the Yang gang in the house, very, very light smattering of applause. Few people randomly distributed, very quiet. It's like, okay, not there. Then Andrew Yang started doing a call and response based on his stump speech, something I'd never heard before. And when I say that the crowd knew how to respond in time, I was very surprised. What I learned is that the Yang gang, they're sneaky, and they'll sneak into your event, and they'll hide, and then they'll reveal themselves.
Whoa.
I personally liked when I was interviewing Cory Booker and I did my thing about the filibuster. And he finally said, "Oh, I'm open to it now. Like maybe I'll eliminate it." He's like, "I have to tell you, it's all these people who listen to Pod Save America. They come up to me at events and they talk about the filibuster. So I've heard your listeners, and it just goes to show like what you guys all do and press people on that can make a difference.
It can really make a difference until Joe Manchin changes parties to keep the filibuster in place in
Yeah, then-
2021.
I also really enjoyed my conversation with Kamala Harris yesterday, which will be out later this afternoon. So tune in. That's just a plug.
Kirsten
Making some news.
Gillibrand.
She was in this office yesterday. She is warm, funny. She's just a pleasure. Love Kamala Harris.
Kirsten Gillibrand, she hugged me to get over being bullied as a child. Elizabeth Warren
She
got
was
to
playing
pet
with the
Pundit.
dogs.
Love that. We've had a blast with these candidates.
We've had a blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Don't Boo Vote asks, what was the best meal you guys had when you were home? Well, I guess only you. When you were home in Boston, but you also. What did you eat? What are the good things?
I went to Faneuil Hall, which, tourist trap, but love Faneuil Hall, and I got myself a lobster roll, some clam chowder. It was delicious. I was so happy.
Couple points I'd like to make about this. I had some great lobster rolls. I had some great oysters. I had some great chowder. I will also concede something right here, right now, for the first time. Dunkin' Donuts does a hell of a breakfast.
Yes!
And you know, I only realized it this morning, this very morning, because I was thinking to myself,
Ham, egg, and cheese on English muffin.
I'm more of a, I'm not a ham person. It's somehow,
It's okay.
I never was kosher, but ham was a bridge too far. Ham was so goyish to me, like I could never touch it. But I still, what a lovely array of options. And End of thought.
Okay. Thoughts on the Game of Thrones premiere? Did the dogs behave? What happened here?
There were no dogs because
Oh yeah, tour.
we were in a van back from Concord, New Hampshire to Boston, Massachusetts, and we were very upset because we didn't think we'd be able to watch it in time. We didn't think we'd be able to look at our phones the whole ride home because people would be texting us spoilers, tweeting spoilers.
Heaven forfend that we do not have an opportunity to look at our phones for 1 hour.
We didn't want to talk to each other. It's been a long weekend. We've said all we need to say to each other.
Nothing to say to Jon and Tommy come the end of a tour. Absolutely nothing.
So instead, all of us in that van ride, me, Lovett, Tommy, Dan, Trav, everyone they used their phone as a hotspot. And we had our laptops, and we watched it streaming on HBO Go on the ride home
That's
to
such
Boston.
a sweet story.
And I had such a blast watching that episode. And listen, I want to talk about this episode without giving you even a hint of a spoiler. So calm the fuck down. There are people
Noah's
out
enjoying
there.
this.
There are people out there, okay, who have made quite a leap to suggest that because we have left the books behind, we are no longer in capable hands. And I want to say to those people, shame on you. Shame on you. Have some faith, all right? Have some faith in where the story has taken us. Have some faith on where it will go. I enjoyed the first episode. I felt as I was in
Loved the new opening credits.
the hands of just great and talented television makers and writers. Loved the new opening credits. Can't wait to see where it goes. I expect we will be visited by incredible horrors on characters we've loved for years.
Yeah. I just have to put in a plug, too. After that was over, watched the latest Veep episode, too. And I was laughing all the way home.
Dude, I was on a van. You would have thought Jon and Tommy were 75-year-old men in easy chairs just cackling at a television. It was
I've never laughed
incredible.
harder
The two of them,
at a Veep episode. I thought it was the funniest fucking episode.
Losing their shit on this quiet van. I was like, what is happening on this episode? I'm a season or so behind Veep. Love Veep, catching up.
Julie Louis-Dreyfus, the cast of Veep, Dave Mandel, they are fucking geniuses. It is the best comedy on television. Go watch it. Cannot get enough of it. I'm going to be so sad when it's over.
I love Veep. Love Veep. So much cackling.
All right, last question. What is everyone's star sign, and what star sign do you think we need in the Oval Office?
I'm a Gemini.
And I'm an adult.
Oh, God.
Born June 2nd.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what it means
Same.
about me. Oh,
Not
yeah,
June
you're
2nd, but yeah. I'm
you're a Gemini, too.
Yeah.
I have found there is nothing I find less interesting than anything related to horoscopes. It is one of the dumbest fucking middle-aged nonsense thing that I don't understand why people care. I don't
When's
understand
Pundit's birthday?
who gives a shit.
Leo is a Leo.
You don't care about her birthday?
Pundit
Born in August. That's
That
one of the
makes
reasons we
sense.
named him
Pundit
Leo.
is an October dog.
Right, Leo?
Pundit a Scorpio? Pundit
I
might be
mean,
a Scorpio.
Look at all of us. Look at all of us living in
That checks out.
living
Hi, Pundo.
living in the world that science has created for us, living healthy, fulfilling lives, and then turning around and basically believing in witchcraft. Oh, I'm in a bad mood because Saturn's in the wrong place.
Here's our Leo.
Mercury's in retrograde. Read a book. Monday, come here. It's dog time.
All right.
Is that it?
That's our stream. Beautiful.
Thanks for joining us.
A
Please,
pleasure as always.
check it out every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Thanks to Nar on the ones and twos. Yell on
Neil
the
killing
camera. Priyanka on the cues. What a day.
Thanks, everyone.